Now, in the meantime, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudirat Kekere-Ekun, has expressed concerns over persistent challenges in the judiciary, including corruption allegations, delays in justice delivery, and perceived bias, despite efforts to tackle them. Speaking in Abuja at the opening of the 2025 hybrid refresher course for judges of superior courts of record, Kekere-Ekun acknowledged that the issues continued to undermine public confidence in the judicial system. She noted that the challenges weaken the judiciary's authority and create a disconnect between the courts and the society they serve, highlighting the judiciary's role as the guardian of justice and the final arbiter in disputes. Kekere-Ekun noted that its effectiveness is deeply tied to public trust. Now, to help us put this into perspective, we are joined by Executive Director, Sterling Center Law, Deji Ajare. Mr. Deji Ajare, thank you very much for joining us this evening here.
Having me, good evening.
Grand. Now, can you please analyze the implications of CJN Kekere-Ekun's remarks on public trust in the judiciary? What role does transparency play in this context?
Sorry, if I didn't get the last part of your question. What role does what?
I had asked what role does transparency play in this context?
Okay, absolutely. Now, the comments made by the CJN is an excellent starting point for a critical discussion on the state of our judiciary. It is very timely, although belated. It is valid. But the point is that it is better that it is late than that it is never addressed. The confidence that the people have in the judiciary is what confers legitimacy on the judiciary. And where public trust is missing, then the judiciary loses its authority. So public trust is not just important, it is indispensable. So whether due to corruption, whether due to delays or perceived bias, the very foundation of our justice system is the public confidence in that system. Now, to the second leg of your question, what role does transparency play? I think transparency is 50% of the confidence that we speak about here. Because it is not just enough that the justice system is impartial or devoid of bias. It is not just enough that the justice system is not enmeshed in corruption. It is not just enough that these things are not there. It is very important that the public perceive that these things are not there. It is important that the public does not perceive the judiciary as biased or impartial. Now, I think, like I said earlier, 50% of the fulfillment of this confidence will come from transparency. Transparency first, from the way and manner judicial officers are appointed. Transparency in the way and manner judicial officers are promoted. Transparency in the way and manner judgments and decisions are reached.
All right.
And that means the judiciary itself must open itself up for criticism.
So in the wake of all this rot that we're speaking about and these corruption allegations, what role does the National Judiciary Council play in maintaining the integrity of the judiciary then?
Well, the NJC, it should be playing a very, very vital role in all of this. First, of course, because it is responsible for the discipline of erring judicial officers. This essentially will ensure that when erring judicial officers are punished and such decisions are made public, other judicial officers are likely to see that and, do the right things. Now, beyond that, the NJC also has a duty, and I'm talking about beyond corruption. The NJC also has a duty to monitor the personal lifestyle of judicial officers, and I think this is very important. So, for instance, I mean, it is common knowledge what the remuneration of judicial officers are. So, if a judicial officer is living above its means, it is the duty of the NJC to flag that up and probably ask the anti-corruption or law enforcement agencies to look into that. That's one. Secondly, the NJC is also responsible to a large extent, or plays a very large, important role in the appointment of judicial officers. It must therefore increase its scrutiny of prospective judicial officers or judicial officers who are to be promoted to the higher courts, maybe from high courts to federal high court to the court of appeal or thereabout. And beyond that scrutiny, they must also ensure that for those who are already judicial officers at lower courts, who are going to maybe the higher courts from high courts, the performances of those judicial officers are taken into cognizance in determining whether they merit such promotion. And when we say performances, we're not just talking about the number of judgments that they have dished out. It is important, of course, that they must be very, very hardworking. But beyond that, there must be some sort of scrutiny into the nature, type, and kind of judgments and decisions that those judges have reached. And where there is some sort of there's persistence of such judicial officers in dishing out judgments, orders, and rulings that do not, that cannot be supported either by law or common sense, then such judicial officers must be denied access to higher offices.
Okay, then do you suggest
is responsible for ensuring this happens.
So do you suggest any frameworks or reforms that can help mitigate corruption in the system?
Reforms and framework, I will tell you the truth of the matter. Like I always say, for most issues in Nigeria, the problem we have is not that of the absence of the framework. It is the lack of the will to give effect to that framework that is already existing. So there is, for instance, already, we're talking about appointment of judicial officers. There are guidelines for the appointment of judicial officers, but is the NJC committed to those guidelines? Has it been following the spirit and the letter of the guidelines? The answer is no. So what they need to do is to ensure that they, in a display of commitment to transparency and to ensuring that public perception of the judicial system, of the judiciary, improves, they must start complying stricto sensu with the spirit and letters of the guidelines that they themselves put in place, but which they have refused to follow, or which they have refused to enforce when the state judicial councils fail to comply.
I want to say thank you very much for giving us your expert opinion on the matter. Of course, as usual, we'll always come to you for these kinds of matters. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome.